Jim Henson presents a Muppet Babies video storybook. Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. I was just sort of sneaking a peek at this first story we're going to read today, and it really looks like a great one. Tell me, have you ever ridden on an airplane? Well, would you like to? Because in this story, Gonzo saves London Bridge. Gonzo and Camilla get to fly on an airplane all the way to London. So you want to go along? Well, then fasten your seatbelts and we'll read Gonzo Saves London Bridge. It was written by Louise Gicco, and the pictures were drawn by Sue Venning. Now imagine that Ralph is playing the piano, and all the Muppet Babies are singing.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady.
All the Muppet Babies fell down in a heap. All of them, that is, except Gonzo. Hey, Gonzo, Kermit called. Why don't you play too? Not me, said Gonzo, shaking his head. I think it's a silly game. Everybody sings the same thing over and over again, and the bridge always falls down in the end. Gee, Kermit said, scratching his head. I never thought of it that way, but it's still a lot of fun. If I had built London Bridge, Gonzo thought, it wouldn't keep falling down. What's wrong with that bridge anyway? Gonzo looked down at his chicken, Camilla. Do you want to go to London and find out? He asked. Camilla looked as if she did. So Gonzo closed his eyes and imagined. "2 tickets to London, please," Gonzo said. "What names, sir?" asked the woman behind the ticket counter. "Gonzo and Camilla." "Aisle or window seat?" "Window," Gonzo said. "Camilla has never flown before, and she'd like to see the view." The first bridge Gonzo and Camilla saw in London was very old, but it was standing up. "That couldn't be it," Gonzo said. "And that's not it either." Gonzo shook his head as they walked past another bridge. Gonzo and Camilla passed a lot of bridges, but none of them had fallen down. Then, in the distance, Gonzo saw something in the river. "That must be London Bridge," he cried. "It's just like I imagined it would be." And there it was. "It's a shame," sighed a London policeman. "The Royal Society of Bridge Builders can't figure out what to do to keep it standing up." "Don't worry," said Gonzo. "Camilla and I will fix it." Gonzo went over to the edge of the river where some small boats were docked. "I've got a plan to keep London Bridge from falling down," he said to the boat captain. "Will you help?" "Of course, mate," said the captain. He and the other sailors listened to Gonzo's plan. Then they all got into their boats. What do you imagine they did? They used their boats to prop up London Bridge. Unfortunately, there was a problem with Gonzo's plan. The boats kept floating down the river, and London Bridge went with them. "Yipes," said Gonzo. "Plan number 2 coming up." Gonzo jumped into the river, where he found a whole family of whales. Whales! Just what I need, he thought happily. Hey guys, can you help me? He asked them. The whales told him, in whale talk of course, that they would be happy to oblige. What do you imagine the whales did? They spouted water from their spouts and held up London Bridge. But soon, the whales got tired, and before long, London Bridge had fallen again. Gonzo thought and he thought. Then he had his best idea yet. He and Camilla called together all the children of London and told them about the new plan. The children thought it was a wonderful idea and agreed to help. First, they went to a toy store. We'd like 5,000 of these, Gonzo said to the storekeeper, in all colors. Then they stayed up all night long, working hard and giggling the whole time. What do you imagine they did? They tied thousands and thousands of balloons to London Bridge. Gonzo's plan worked. The citizens of London were very grateful to Gonzo. They gave him the key to the city. London Bridge would never fall down again. Gonzo, a voice in the nursery called. Wake up! We're going to draw some pictures now. Gonzo looked up at Kermit and smiled. That sounds great, he said. After all that excitement about London Bridge, Camilla needs something nice and quiet to do. Right, Camilla? Phew. Well, I must say that was quite a feat of engineering, not to mention balloon blowing. You know, Gonzo was sure using his imagination. Now, in this next story, Baby Fozzie uses his imagination to find out what it would be like to be somebody else. Have you ever pretended to be somebody else? Well, Fozzie actually pretends to be me, and I sure hope he knows what he's doing, because it's not easy being green. Anyhow, the name of this story is If I Were Just Like Kermit. It was written by H.B. Gilmore, and the pictures were drawn by Mary Bousman. Shoo! Baby Kermit had a cold. His nose was red, his eyes looked bleary. Nanny said he had to stay in bed. Baby Fozzie decided to cheer Kermit up with one of his jokes. What's green and red and has to stay in bed? He asked. I don't know, said Kermit. He was trying to say, I don't know. You are, Baby Fozzie exclaimed. You are green, your nose is red, and today you have to stay in bed. Kermit did not laugh. He just sighed and sneezed again. Achoo! I need some rest. That meant I need some rest. Then he rolled over and went to sleep. I have failed, said Fozzie sadly as he shuffled away. I tried to cheer up my friend Kermit, and instead I put him to sleep. He sat down on his rocking chair and rocked and thought. My friend Kermit is always kind and helpful and daring. He's brave and polite and clever, too. If I were sick, he would know exactly what to do to make me feel better. Suddenly, Baby Fozzie snapped his fingers. That's it, he declared, throwing off his gloomy mood. If I do just what Kermit would do, I can make him feel good. All I have to do is put myself in Kermit's place. I'll imagine what he would do if I were sick. Fozzie closed his eyes. Kermit is so kind, he would probably fix me a great big breakfast in bed. So that's what I'll do. Fozzie imagined himself as Kermit. He imagined putting on a chef's hat, an apron, and off he scurried to the kitchen. Fozzie found some butter and 6 eggs. He dropped 3 of the eggs on the floor and scrambled the others in the frying pan. Then he put 2 nice thick slices of bread in the toaster. He let them toast while he hunted for jam. The butter started to melt. The eggs and toast began to burn. Fozzie finally found the jam behind a pile of cans that toppled off a shelf. "Oh dear," cried Fozzie as the cans rolled across the floor. "I can barely see because of all the smoke. I'd better find a mop and pail to tidy up this awful mess. I have to be helpful, because that is exactly what Kermit would do." Determined to be as helpful as Kermit, Fozzie ran to the sink and turned on the water. Then off he went to find a pail. He hurried as fast as he could, but the water was faster than he was. By the time baby Fozzie returned to the kitchen, there was enough water on the floor for a seafaring bear to go sailing. What would Kermit, who was daring, do in a case like this? Fozzie wondered, trying hard to stay afloat. Why, Kermit would climb aboard the pail and sail off on an exciting adventure, he decided. So he scrambled into the pail. The mop made a very fine oar. He peered through his spyglass in search of a distant shore. All of a sudden, baby Fozzie gulped, and he gasped, and he dropped his spyglass. He couldn't believe what he had seen. It was huge. It swam like a fish. Its tail was spiky and green. The creature turned and splashed. The water churned and foamed, and daring Fozzie wished he were back in the nursery. What would Kermit do now? Fozzie asked himself. He would be brave, and he would also be polite. So brave Fozzie sailed closer to the creature. "Excuse me," he said politely to the beast, who was hidden behind the foam. "It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Fozzie, and I'm trying my best to get home." The creature's head poked out of the waves. Fozzie took one look and smiled. It was only a baby sea monster who had been taking a bubble bath. The little sea monster stared shyly at Fozzie. Its tail trembled with fright. Then it hiccuped a bouquet of bubbles and dove quickly out of sight. Fozzie was starting to feel very hungry. It must be lunchtime, he said to himself. Now what would Kermit do? He is so clever. With all this water around, he'd probably go fishing. So Fozzie cast his mop overboard into a school of tuna cans, through egg seashells and sailing pans, past floating toast and jam. Before long, he had caught a fine lunch. It had been a lovely adventure, but Fozzie wished he were back on dry land. What would clever Kermit do if he were tired of bobbing about in a pail? Fozzie wondered. He certainly wouldn't fuss or shout. Kermit would just reach overboard, pull the plug, and let the water out. It seemed like a fine plan, so clever Fozzie reached overboard. But the pail tipped. Poor Fozzie fell out, and down he went, and down, and down. Beneath the water, Fozzie thought he saw the plug. He swam toward it with all his might. The next thing Fozzie knew, he was staring at Nanny's shoes. "Fozzie, why are you trying to swim on the nursery floor?" Nanny was asking. "Oh my, you've got a lump on your head. You must have fallen off your rocking chair. I better get you right into bed." When Kermit woke up, he was feeling much better. He found baby Fozzie lying next to him. Fozzie had an ice pack on his head. "Fozzie, what happened to you?" Kermit wanted to know. "Well, I thought that if I were just like you, I'd know how to make you feel better," Fozzie explained to his friend. "So I tried to be kind, helpful, and daring. And I tried to be brave, polite, and clever, too. But," said Fozzie, sighing, "I'm really much better at being myself than I am at being like you." "Well, that's good," said Kermit. Because I like you just the way you are. You do? Asked Fozzie, smiling at last. Well then, how about a new joke? What's brown and very funny and has to stay in bed? He asked, feeling like his old self again. Kermit laughed. My best friend, he said, the one and only Fozzie. Gee, I'm glad Fozzie decided he'd rather be himself, aren't you? I tell you one thing, though, I never realized how much energy it takes to be me. And speaking of energy, our next story is about the most energetic member of the nursery, Baby Animal. It's called Animal Go Bye-Bye, and it's all about what happens one day when Animal decides he doesn't want to take a nap. Now, Animal Go Bye-Bye is written by Louise Gicko, and Tom Brannan drew the pictures. Come on, Animal. Time for your nap. Baby Kermit had called Baby Animal 3 times, but Animal wasn't paying any attention. He had a piece of paper in front of him, and he was busy drawing a picture of an amusement park. No sleep, Animal shouted. Animal, go here! And he pointed to his picture. No, Animal, said Kermit patiently. You can't go to the amusement park now. You'll have to take your nap. No nap, Animal said stubbornly. Animal, go bye-bye. Animal shut his eyes tight. When he opened them, there was the Ferris wheel, and the merry-go-round, and best of all, there was the roller coaster. Animal, go roller coaster, he said happily, climbing in. Animal, said a voice behind him. Animal turned around, and there was Kermit. It's time for your nap, Kermit said. Come on. No! Animal, go bye-bye! When Animal got off the roller coaster, Kermit was still there. Submarine! Animal, ride submarine! Animal said. Nap! Animal, take nap! Kermit replied, looking a little angry. Submarine! Nap! The submarine took Animal to a desert island. Animal, play in sand! Animal began throwing sand around everywhere. Animal, go nap, Kermit said, popping up right behind him. No nap! Animal shook his head. Animal, go bye-bye! Animal went out on deck. Animal, play game, he said. Animal, sleep, Kermit called out as he climbed aboard the ship. No! Animal, go bye-bye! Animal jumped into a lifeboat and rowed away. Animal rowed for a long time. Finally, he reached the shore. Big building, Animal said, looking up. Big trouble, Kermit answered. Animal, you'll be in big trouble if you don't take your nap. Animal, go bye-bye, Animal said, waving. From the top of the building, Animal could see the whole city. Animal, look, he cried. Animal, sleep, Kermit said. Animal, no sleep. Animal, go bye-bye. The balloon took Animal off to a big airport. Animal watched the jet planes take off and land. Animal, fly away, he said, jumping up and down. Animal, Kermit sighed. If you don't take your nap, Nanny will be very angry.
Animal, go bye-bye.
Animal shouted. Animal sat back and looked out the window of the airplane. He was a little tired after all his adventures. Soon, his eyes started to close.
Animal sleepy,
he murmured. As he began to fall asleep, Animal felt the flight attendant covering him with a soft blanket. "Why don't you take a nice nap?" Animal heard him say. Kermit finished covering Animal with the blanket. Animal had already started to snore. But as Kermit tiptoed away, Animal opened one eye. "Animal go bye-bye?" he whispered. "Animal go bye-bye," Kermit whispered back. "Sweet dreams." You know, following Animal around has made me want to take a nap. So if you'll excuse me, I'll see you back here again soon, I hope. Okay? And in the meantime, you might want to rewind this tape and play it again. Although I will probably say the same things. But you never know. Bye now.